this video, we're going to break down the true cost of owning a franchise. We're going to cover everything from the initial franchise fee to even any hidden fees that might be out there. Whether you're eyeing a franchise that you can run remotely, or you're looking at a large retail operation or a home services business that's more personnel based, we have the insights for you that will help you make the right decision. Welcome back to our channel. I'm Jon Anderson, where our mission is to help executives, entrepreneurs, and those in corporate transition move into the dynamic and fast-growing, fast-paced franchise industry. Let's dive in. What is a franchise? Well, simply put, a franchise is a very smart team that has proven the concept in their local city or county, and now they start to scale that operation into contiguous counties, multiple states, and then they decide to franchise, which allows them to scale faster and more efficiently. You reach an economy of scale in the franchise operation. Most folks will think of McDonald's, of course, when it comes to franchising, and that's true, they're outstanding. However, a lot of smart people out there have taken the McDonald's concept and they've applied it to non-food franchise industries. For example, some of the hottest categories right now in the franchising industry are home services, pet care, senior care, sports, and fitness. Let's talk about the fees involved in the franchising industry. There's the franchise fee, and we're regulated by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. That fee has to be paid to the franchisor. It typically will range anywhere from $40,000 to about $65,000. That's a one-time fee. You pay that and you're done on the franchise fee. However, typically you're also going to pay royalty fees. The royalty fees are on average going to run from 6 to 8%. Some will even have a sliding or a descending scale. The more revenue you do, the less percentage your royalty fees will be. Also, you're typically going to pay an advertising fund fee. That normally is going to be about 1 to 2%. And that's going to go into the National Advertising and Marketing Fund. That's going to help the franchisor brand your business across the country, not just in your local area. Everyone pays into that fund. The more stores or locations that they have operating and contributing to that fund, the more effective they'll be able to buy into the TV advertising and radio advertising programs across the country to build that brand and that name recognition. Also, you're going to typically pay, in some instances, what's called a technology fee. And that technology fee can range anywhere from $250 on the low to $1,000 on the high. Now, with all of these fees, you're going to get comprehensive training. You're going to get it at the initial training, which is typically anywhere from 2 days up to 2 weeks. They're also typically going to fly in trainers into your local market that are going to set up camp with you and going to help you get off to a very, very quick start in your local market area. Let's talk about the initial total investment for the franchise industry. We typically will see a range anywhere from $100,000 on the low to $1 million or more on the high side. Our sweet spot is between $200,000 to $300,000. So let's take the mid part of that range, $250,000. Typically, you're looking at 10% in terms of post-closing liquidity. So that's $25,000. And that they're going to want to see you have left over in your personal bank account. Right? They don't want to see you put your last dollar into your franchise or your cash injection or down payment. The cash injection amount for your franchise on that $250,000 is typically 20%. So 20% against $250,000 is $50,000. So $25,000 for your post-closing liquidity, $50,000 for your cash injection. Most of our franchise brands you can get in comfortably for $75,000. I typically tell our clients and candidates to round that up to, $80,000 to $100,000 to feel comfortable, with inflation. There's any additional cost overruns that maybe you didn't anticipate before opening. Much of the cost ranges as well will depend on two key factors. Your market. Obviously, opening a brick and mortar in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho is going to be less costly than opening up in Miami, Chicago, New York, or Los Angeles. The second factor for that range, is it a brick and mortar model, or is it going to be a remote work from home or work from anywhere model? In the case of a brick and mortar model, obviously you're going to look at the cost for the structure itself. And then the question is, do you have build out cost? For example, if you're talking about a restaurant, as an example, or an auto care facility where they've got to install the lifts for the vehicles or the hoods and the ovens for a restaurant, that typically is going to cost more because of the build out. However, we have a number of brick and mortar models, Game Day, Men's Health, for example, where you're looking at just the shell, and then they've got a remodeling team that'll work with you on the basic setup of the shell. Very simple model, much less costly, even though it's a brick and mortar, because there's no real true build out. Also, we have a brand physical. It's a physical balance center, rehab centers. Again, you're basically looking at the quality shell there, but they're going to bring in the equipment for you that's already manufactured, meets their specs. So again, the range for brick and mortar will depend on finding the right location. Some brands are looking for A quality location, some B quality, some C quality. And then the key is there an extensive build out necessary or not? Now, if you're looking at a remote model, then your cost is going to be less, essentially because you don't have that brick and mortar kind of being the parachute in terms of the expenses to hit break even. Most remote models you can run just from your home with a laptop, tablet, and or your smartphone, right? What I've seen typically in the remote model area, if you need a storage facility, many of our candidates and clients will start out with just their garage, their 2-car garage. They'll use that temporarily for storing inventory. Another very effective model is start with a small mini storage, self-storage facility. Very low cost. Keep your cost as low as possible, especially until you hit that break even. And now you're running down the hill versus up the hill. Let's talk a little bit about operating cost. So when you open your doors, you're going to purchase inventory, your initial inventory cost. Again, that's going to depend on the type of franchise model that you're investing in. But essentially, you don't purchase additional inventory until you have depleted or sold your existing inventory. So that initial inventory cost, again, is going to depend on the industry. Your rent, again, most of that's going to depend on whether or not it's what they call a Class A or B facility. For example, an auto care client of ours in the DFW market, it's not A type or A quality structure that they're looking for. It was a B type structure, 5,000 square feet, kind of in an industrial park. It wasn't, the door is not facing the main road. You got to go down a little alley, but that's okay because this particular auto care facility has a huge brand and it's adjacent to an intersection off of a main highway there in the DFW market. So the key, lower cost on the rent or the lease for the structure in the building, but yet they can put signage off the main freeway with an arrow pointing them to that road, to that address, and then down the alley. Let's talk about utilities. That will depend on the size of the location, but your utilities can typically range anywhere from $400 to $500 on the low to as high as $1,500, again, depending on the needs of that particular business model within the facility itself. Let's talk about staffing. Staffing typically, in my opinion, is the number one opportunity for franchisees that give you the greatest probability of success. What do I mean by that? Well, recruiting, developing talent, training your talent, and of course, retaining top talent. What's really cool about the franchise industry, we've got a very dialed in recruiting system within the industry. You do not need to be a subject matter expert as the franchisee or entrepreneur owning and running that franchise. Why? Because of the recruiting that's going to be offered to you. They won't be able, the brand or the franchisor will not be able to hire for you because that puts them in a different employer class, but they have a recruiting system that they'll be able to teach you. They can help you find the right talent that gives you that level of comfort to know that you're going to have these subject matter experts that they're going to help you recruit to then scale your business. So the industry is looking for folks who know how to build a team and then scale a team. The technical expertise, we're going to be able to give you assistance with that. All right, let's talk about the cost involved in funding or financing your franchise. The most popular is going to be your SBA. Two main sources there. The SBA Express loan that typically will cap out at $150,000. Sometimes we can bend that up to $165,000 to $175,000. And the SBA 7A loan for everything above $150,000. Typically, SBA loans are going to be prime plus 2.75 or prime plus 3%. There's also unsecured funding strategies. There's home equity lines of credit or HELOCs that are very popular. Portfolio loans are starting to grow in popularity. What is a portfolio loan? Well, that's a loan against your portfolio. You don't touch it, so there's no negative tax consequence, but you leverage your financial portfolio to come up with the funds to launch your new franchise. One that has really grown in popularity is the 401k rollover. It's not a loan. It's equity financing and not debt financing. Very, very popular for those that qualify. One of the key qualifiers is that you have to leave corporate America or at least leave your current employer. And many of you are in that position. Maybe you've moved on to a second corporate job or third, and you have funds left in a former 401k plan. Roll those dollars over into your C Corp. C Corp has to be set up. You own the C Corp, and the C Corp owns all the franchises and or independent businesses under its umbrella. The beauty about the 401k rollover, there's no negative tax consequence. Totally IRS allowed for business startups. A great way that the government is incenting and motivating folks who are in that position to do a business startup. Why? Because now you're hiring, and that is going to drive 65, 70% of the economy, right? SMBs, small business owners. Many entrepreneurial types have a strong desire to start their own business. However, they're not sure of the exact way or ways to fund their franchise or their startup. And that's why I put together this comprehensive, innovative funding strategies guide. It's going to walk you through the most popular methods available today to fund your franchise or your startup. It's going to include explanations on the SBA Express, the SBA 7A, home equity lines of credit, unsecured funding, portfolio loans, 401k rollovers, and a lot more. Download your free copy by clicking in the link in the description below. Now let's talk about ROI, or return on investment. Now, because the entire industry is regulated by the FTC or the Federal Trade Commission, they don't want us consultants or even franchisors talking about big income, net income claims or ROI. However, typically, you're going to see a break even for a remote run franchise, work from home or work remotely, somewhere in that 6 to 9 month range. When it comes to brick and mortar, because you do have the added expense of the brick and mortar, the lease cost, the utilities associated with it, your typical break even there is going to be somewhere between month 9 to about month 20 to 24. Again, depending on the market, depending on your talent, your ability, your aptitude, your leadership experience, that will certainly help you to hit break even sooner than later. Now, we've got some brands in our portfolio that actually can prove through their FDD or franchise disclosure document, where some in their, many in fact, in their lineup or in their system are generating EBITDA numbers, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, a range of probably 12 to 45%, depending on the business model, depending on the brand, the industry. However, those kind of EBITDA numbers are out there. Now that you have a better understanding of the cost in the franchise industry, now let's find the right franchise fit for you. There's so much more involved in the franchise industry that you need to know. And that's why I've created an entire series devoted to each of the topics in the franchise industry. Click on the video that's on your screen right now, and I'll see you there.